Worst date ever.
Yeah, they even lost their friends. I think. What happened to Trish and John? Are they still fighting?
Well, I'll show you how I think it went down in my new show, DBX.
Oh, wait, what? Did you actually do analysis on your own?
Hell no. I'm just gonna make them fight.
Ugh, you would. In what actually matters, it's true that Bayonetta's satellite-throwing feat trumps any and all of Dante's physical displays of strength. However, Dante edges out in every other category.
His arsenal matched and exceeded Bayonetta's blow for blow. Hell, even a giant demon like Madama Butterfly is nothing new to this demon slayer for hire. But most of all, Bayonetta didn't have many ways to actually kill him. I mean, the dude shrugs off mortal wounds every day like they were nothing more than bug bites. Both could take a bullet, but unlike Dante, when Bayonetta's stabbed, it hurts. That's why avoiding attacks was her specialty.
But she could only dodge for so long against somebody like Dante. Early in their careers, Dante and Virgil obliterated each and every raindrop within a 12-foot radius, briefly creating a completely open space in a rainstorm. Up to 30 raindrops can occupy a cubic foot on average, meaning they destroyed 108,000 raindrops in less than a second, without any extra abilities or styles. Even with Bayonetta's absurd reaction speed, Dante striking so much space in so little time far outclasses anything she has ever had to avoid.
Even when she tried avoiding him, with which time Dante's Quicksilver evened the playing field, basically making it useless.
It was just a matter of time before Bayonetta suffered the fatal blow.
Well, you know what they say, hair today, gone tomorrow.
The winner is Dante.
KO!
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
Bowser may have had the advantage in brute strength, but Ganon's deadlier magic and superior intellect won out in the end.
Ganon had his fair share of brawn as well, but what really counts is his ability to form a strategy and plan of attack.
Regardless of intelligence, both Bowser and Ganon were nearly invulnerable to typical means of harm. Ganon could only be killed by holy weapons like the Master Sword and Silver Arrows, so while Bowser could hurt him, he couldn't exactly kill him.
Meanwhile, Bowser could survive almost anything. Almost. In New Super Mario Bros. DS, after falling into some kind of super lava, it's gotta be since he survived molten dips before unscathed, he became Dry Bowser, and after a strong enough impact, not even his own magic could reassemble his body.
You can even see the light missing in his eyes, so in this case, for all intents and purposes, Bowser was dead by magic and force. With Ganon's unlimited pool of magic power, he not only cursed Bowser's body to decay like he did the Deku Tree, but also blasted him apart with enough force to more than surpass that fall in the castle.
Ganon had this fight war locked down.
The winner is Ganon.
KO!
Oh, not the weasel guy.
Jak and Daxter were formidable fighters, especially when they had enough eco on hand. But Ratchet and Clank's better teamwork, superior defenses, and overwhelming arsenal trumped them in the end.
While they both had ways to patch themselves up, Ratchet's nanotech was way more reliable and plentiful than Jak's green eco.
And Ratchet's shields and incapacitative weaponry were more than enough to put a stop to Jak's more offensive eco.
Haha, take that, nature!
While Jak and Daxter's morph gun was one of the most versatile weapons we've ever seen, it absolutely pales in comparison to the sheer size and power of Ratchet and Clank's arsenal.
Jak's best shot was his dark form, but like everything Jak and Daxter had, it didn't take long to run out of juice. While Ratchet and Clank had more than enough gadgets and weaponry to keep up the fight.
Plus, Clank is an infinitely more capable sidekick than Daxter, especially his time manipulation and immunity powers.
It was game overture for Jak and Daxter.
The winners are Ratchet and Clank.
KO!
Flash fact, sharp things hurt.
As fast as Quicksilver is, the Flash is just much faster.
Quicksilver clearing the speed of light is great and all, but the Flash has gone 10 times that.
Which would put him at more than 6 billion miles per hour.
Plus, Barry can pull other people into the Speed Force and fight them there, giving him a home field advantage.
In addition, the Flash's brain can process events in less than an attosecond. And in case you're wondering, 12 attoseconds is the shortest period of time humanity has ever been able to measure. This means that while Quicksilver's Beethoven feat proved he can think over 500,000 times faster than an ordinary person, The Flash can think many trillion times faster. He had plenty of time to predict every perceivable action Quicksilver may have taken.
Quicksilver had the upper hand in formal combat training, but when you're fighting someone who can move, think, and act way faster than you, there's not really much you can do. You could say this battle was over in a flash.
The winner is the Flash.
KO!
Oh, come on. It wasn't that funny.
Both clowns were skilled in combat, but Joker's superior tactics and unpredictable weaponry gave him the leg up he needed.
When you have a toxic gas so deadly it can take out the entire Justice League, all the Joker needed was one opportunity to use it.
And despite his lanky frame, the Joker can take a lot of punishment, and he's good enough to survive hand-to-hand combat with Batman.
Hell, he's smart enough to trick Batman and even manipulate the incorruptible Superman into being pawns in his schemes.
As opposed to Needles, whose mental capacity is limited to just one thing.
Murder, murder, and more murder with a dash of ice cream.
The Joker has plenty of experience manipulating the minds of homicidal maniacs. In fact, many people like Needles have wound up in Joker's gang. It was only a matter of time before he made his opportunity to use the Joker Venom.
Joker wasn't clowning around in this gas of a fight that had us on pins and needles.
We should really put you on a limit.
Aw, come on, Wiz. Those puns were sweet.
The winner is the Joker.
Well, that was fun. Who's for Chinese?
KO!
You know, Wiz, when we started Death Battle, I don't think we ever expected to see someone die by spoon.
Yeah, Shadow may have had the advantage in pure speed and power, but this time, Brain defeated Brawn.
Mewtwo got the rundown on all Shadow's abilities simply by reading his mind, giving it the knowledge it needed to counter or avoid crazy powers like Chaos Control.
Ultimately, there was nothing really stopping Mewtwo from just taking over Shadow's mind, and its impressive durability and healing power bought it enough time to do so.
It's pretty hard to win a fight when your opponent can make you forget what you're doing and who you are in an instant.
Shadow has been mind controlled before, and has always relied on outside help to recover. Even while Super Shadow was physically invulnerable, this form didn't protect his mind. Like that time he fell from space, and then the worst game ever happened.
Yeah, Shadow was gonna lose, sooner or later.
The winner is Mewtwo. Carolina's mastery of martial arts let her hold her own, and her use of equipment allowed her to match and even counter the metas. He may have gained an upper hand with his temporal distortion, but Carolina's healing unit quickly repaired damage done during the attack.
Even though the meta had all that powerful equipment, it drained his suit's energy way too fast. Carolina tried to use all of her equipment at once and failed. Luckily, she had Epsilon to change tactics and focus on recovery.
Which brings us to what is perhaps the most important factor of the fight, the relationship between Freelancer and artificial intelligence. The meta was brainwashed and manipulated by 8 different AI, effectively filling his head with an unintelligible mess of voices and commands. In contrast, Carolina and Epsilon worked together as partners with a mutual trust, both capable of making judgment calls to make up for each other's weaknesses.
Whatever. I still say it should have been the meta.
Says the guy who can't tell the difference between a car and a puma.
I can tell the difference. It was a matter of comparison.
The meta just couldn't get ahead of his competition.
The winner is Agent Carolina.
KO!
Fatality!
Cammy might have had an edge in speed and agility, but Sonya's far superior strength, arsenal, tactics, and experience overwhelmed her.
Sonya's fought opponents who have led armies and conquered worlds, and taken them on back to back. Sure, Cammy's done the same, just never against quite such an impressive lineup.
Sonya has about 10 years worth of military experience over Cammy, and it's not like she was pushing papers all that time. When she wasn't chasing down war criminals on her own, she was a longtime leader against multiple interdimensional invasions. Cammy did a lot with Delta Red, but nothing which stacks up to Sonya's resume.
And hey, Cammy's durability of an elephant is impressive. But you know what's tougher than that? Solid steel.
True, and while Cammy was adept at dodging projectiles, she couldn't keep it up against Sonya's large arsenal attacking from multiple angles at once.
Looks like Cammy's only half the woman Sonya is.
The winner is Sonya Blade.
KO!
And he's out!
Scout was fast and tough, but Tracer's unique arsenal and evasiveness pulled her ahead.
Scout's greatest feat was potentially surviving an assault from 3 rockets at once. However, the rocket's point of impact is never directly shown, and since direct hits from rockets regularly obliterate far tougher mercs, it's unreasonable to assume this was any different.
Scout could sprint up to 17 miles an hour for an extended period of time, which is slightly faster than the average human's 15 miles per hour. But Tracer's natural reactive instinct gave her the edge. For example, avoiding that sniper round from 30 feet away means she can react 25 times faster than the vast majority of other human beings.
Which means Tracer could avoid almost anything Scout threw at her. Even when she couldn't, her recall ability not only helped her survive, but effectively ruined any of Scout's elements of surprise.
This allowed Tracer plenty of opportunities to take him out.
And just like that, Scout was gone, without a trace.
The winner is Tracer.
KO!
Bummer. So, on the bright side, this means Eliza's single now, right? Boomstick. Just saying what we're all thinking, Wiz.
Both Ken and Terry had been fighting since they were children, and each won their fair share of tournaments. However, Terry's sheer power proved too much for Ken to handle.
Outside of tourneys, Ken's most notable victories were usually only possible because he had help. Sure, Ken's taken down Zangief, Hugo, and Vega multiple times, who are extremely deadly in their own right, but they aren't nearly as heavy hitters as those on Terry's resume, like Krauser and Mars.
Also, keeping up with and surpassing Jameen, who can effortlessly catch bullets, proves Terry can match someone over twice the speed of sound. Much faster than anything Ken's ever shown.
Man, when Eliza hears about this, she's gonna feel terrible.
The winner is Terry Bogard.
KO!
Game over.
Ramona may have been the smarter and more level-headed of the two, but Amy just had the edge in almost every other category.
Ramona can skate faster than most, but Amy's fast enough to keep up with Sonic. To be clear, she's definitely not as fast as Sonic, but she's certainly capable of catching up to him at times. Ramona stood no chance in the speed department, so she had to rely on her skill and strength. And while they both had similar strength feats like defeating giant robots or whacking people a huge distance with their hammers, Amy's feats go several steps beyond anything of Ramona's.
Take Amy throwing her hammer into Eggman's ship in the sky, for instance. Given the height of the ship and Amy's location, it's likely she had to throw her hammer at least 2,100 feet. While her hammer's exact weight is unknown, its head is large enough to be compared to the biggest sledgehammer ever used by man, which was 64 pounds. In order to hit Eggman's ship as hard as she did, she must have thrown her hammer with 2 tons of force at bare minimum. And we're really lowballing that.
And that was just the first throw. The second one made the ship spin over, putting it way higher than 2 tons. Ramona at her best could take a hit from Roxy, who can dole out at a max up to 1.5 tons of force.
Whereas Amy survived being crushed by a boulder which, scaled to her height, weighed at least 4 tons.
Ramona gained an advantage when she brought the fight to her subspace purse mind.
But when Ramona's ex Gideon was trapped in that subspace, he was able to escape by destroying her bag. As Amy is stronger and faster than Ramona, there's no reason to believe she couldn't do the same. And with Ramona's last trump card out of commission, all Amy had to do was finish her off.
Looks like Amy rose to the occasion.
The winner is Amy Rose.
KO!
Oh, that was beautiful!
With the Hulk's immeasurable power and Doomsday's impossible immortality, this truly felt like a fight between an unstoppable force and an immovable object.
Hulk may have had the advantage in raw strength, at least at his full potential, but Doomsday could certainly hold his ground. His victories against the likes of Superman and Darkseid prove he can take a hit from someone strong enough to break planets.
And by experience, Doomsday had the speed advantage. He regularly fights foes with light speed capabilities, while that kind of speed is an extreme rarity in the Marvel Universe. In fact, the only foe that fast who Hulk's ever seemed to keep pace with in a one-on-one match was Sentry, and that was when he was at his most powerful stage, Worldbreaker Hulk.
So overall, Hulk had strength and Doomsday had speed, but neither completely outclassed the other. At first glance, this one looked like it could go either way.
Which means the devil's in the very tiny details.
So why couldn't the Hulk's infinite strength just keep rising and eventually overwhelm Doomsday?
Well, even assuming Hulk's strength was infinite, his healing factor was not. Don't get me wrong, it can only be overtaxed by hits from absurdly powerful beings such as Zeus or Sentry, whom Doomsday certainly compares.
Naturally, Doomsday's crazy strength and speed started wearing that healing factor down.
Here's where it gets a bit tricky. The Hulk may look like a giant green monster, but he's still technically human, and his power directly correlates with his anger. A human being's anger stems from an increase in hormones and adrenaline in the body. However, the brain can only produce these chemicals at such a rate for a limited time, eventually giving up and turning apathetic. Therefore, Hulk's limitless power could never have existed without his healing factor. It's the key. It allowed his body to continue producing hormones and adrenaline far beyond the norm, theoretically an endless supply, thus increasing his superhuman power to an immeasurable degree. So, Doomsday overtaxing his healing factor meant the Hulk could no longer maintain his increasing rage and Hulk form.
And if you're still skeptical, that's why there's a bunch of times in comics when a huge impact forced the Hulk to turn back into Bruce Banner, including that battle between Worldbreaker Hulk and Sentry. With his healing power beaten down, he literally couldn't keep himself angry enough to stay in Hulk mode.
I love science, but there's still one more thing. Thanks to his battles with Superman and other Kryptonians, Doomsday has evolved to a point where it's basically impossible to kill him with brute force alone.
So Hulk couldn't have killed him by just getting angry enough to punch harder than Doomsday ever felt.
Precisely. Here's the proof. Superman and Doomsday eventually had a rematch, in which Superman was much more powerful than their first battle. As we discussed before, Superman's power is also potentially limitless by way of continually absorbing solar energy, and at this point in his story, he'd begun to discover that.
But try as he might, despite his increased power, Supes couldn't kill Doomsday with blunt force a second time.
Ultimately, Doomsday's immunity to being ripped, impaled, incinerated, blasted with energy, and being beaten by blunt force from both focused and multiple sources means Hulk just didn't have the options available to take Doomsday out before his healing factor was overtaxed.
On this day, Hulk met his doom. Doomsday.
The winner is Doomsday.
KO!
Jesus! Talk about a killing blow!
In the past, Erza could react to projectiles flying over 500 miles per hour, but Zoro could move faster than the eye could see. US Air Force tests have shown that a well-trained human eye can consistently spot and recognize an image in 1/220th of a second. So, in this case, Zoro would have had to move from point A to point B, which is about 57 feet, in 4.5 milliseconds. That's close to 9,000 miles per hour.
That's more than 5 times faster than a bullet. Erza didn't really rely on speed anyway, and there's no evidence any of her armor magic could have helped close that wide of a gap.
Speaking of her armor, Erza did have more options in defense and weaponry. Unfortunately for her, she was simply outclassed in damage dealt.
Erza could withstand hits of about 2 kilotons, like the blast which destroyed that island, but Zoro has dished out much stronger blows than that.
Slicing Pika in half, for example, was equivalent to 11.5 megatons. That's about 6,000 times bigger than anything Erza has survived. And while Erza's artificial eye may have seen through Zoro's 9-sword style illusion, it couldn't prevent him from actually attacking her.
She also had that habit of stripping down to clear hard clothing in a bind. Yeah, it gave her more sword power, but at the cost of less defense. This sounded like a good idea on paper, but close-range combat was Zoro's bread and butter.
Erza was mostly self-taught, and while proficient with a blade, Zoro has trained with swords all his life. Even with the greatest swordsman in the world, an up-close duel was exactly what he was looking for.
Guess she won't be getting a fairy tale ending.
The winner is Roronoa Zoro.
What the? Where's the carnage? What a cop-out.
I can't. This isn't how it's supposed to be.
I mean, I guess it makes sense when you think about it. Weren't you the one who said breaking the rules would careen out of control or whatever?
Don't ask me, this wasn't my call.
So, who wins? Who loses?
Boomstick, I think the loser is us.
F***ing pony.